Hey guys, my name is Graham Johnson. Welcome back to Tabletop Glory. Today we're going to be talking about Kill Team. Specifically, we're going to be working on the terrain. Now, normally I would have all of the terrain here for you guys to take a look at right at the start of the video. However, this is going to end up being a multi-part series, so we're going to not only be doing the terrain, but we're also going to be doing the miniatures, and then we're going to just do like a general how to play. So this is going to end up being a multi-part series. Like I said, this video is just about the terrain though, and we're also going to be doing those little gauges that come with the game, and we'll talk about all that. Now, we're going to have a lot of fun with this, and we're going to be able to do this up kind of thematically, and I hope you guys will really enjoy today's video. But anyway, let's get on with it. So if you're not really familiar with Kill Team, I've oftentimes heard it referred to as a watered down version of Warhammer 40k, and in its very layman's terms, that's exactly what it is. It's kind of a gateway game. If you're interested in Warhammer 40k, but maybe you don't necessarily have the funds to dive head into it, or perhaps you don't have the space for a large collection, Kill Team's a really great way to get your feet wet and decide for yourself whether or not you want to continue forward with this hobby, or maybe this is as far as you want to go and you just want to collect a couple of teams to play with from time to time. It works out just great. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to crack into the newest Kill Team box, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we get. So for starters, you're going to get 2 of these gauges and this measuring stick, as well as these little barriers that we've got going on here, and you're going to get a bunch of terrain as well as some models. Now we're just going to be talking about what we see on screen here for a little bit, and then we're going to actually start talking about the terrain. Now, most people don't even bother to paint the gauges or the measuring stick, they just leave it plain gray plastic. Me, I like things a little bit more thematic, and the fact that I'm going to be playing this game less than I'm going to be playing Warhammer 40k means that they're not going to wear out and need to be repainted as often, so just keep that in mind. But to go ahead and get started, we want to go ahead and base this with some kind of a copper color. Now you're going to want to base it with some kind of a dark bronzy coppery color. Either one of these colors will work just fine. And you're also going to want to base coat these little shield things in some kind of generic metal color. Could be a dark color, could be a bright color. It's entirely up to you. Just something that's going to kind of get the point across that these are made of metal. Now, if you don't have access to either one of those spray paints, you can use something like Warplock Bronze and then lightly gray brush with something like a Screaming Skull. That'll work just fine, and it'll get the same effect across once it's all said and done. Now, my reference image is coming from the subreddit for Kill Team. Now, I'm using this strip here in orange. This is a mixture of Wild Rider Red and Jericho Orange, but any kind of a vibrant orange will do. Now, I'm having to use several coats of this where I'm applying this orange simply because of how thin I'm applying it and because I'm applying it on top of black. Depending on what you used for your primer layer, whether it be black, gray, or white, is entirely going to depend on how many coats that you end up having to put, but because I'm putting it on top of black, I actually ended up doing close to 10 coats, and I probably should have put down some kind of other layer first before I put down my orange. When I was doing my live stream last week, I had somebody who asked the question of how do you eliminate brush strokes when working on a large flat surface. So in the case here, this is kind of simulating our large flat surface. And the trick is doing your brush strokes in different directions on each successive pass. So in this case, I was going vertically. Once that dries, I'm going to want to go ahead and go horizontally. And I'm using really thin layers of paint so that it self-levels. Now, if you don't really trust yourself, you can use a thinning medium similar to Flow Aid and just do a lot of coats that way. Now, in addition to our strip, we're also going to be covering in all of these little recessed areas on all these little symbols as well. So we're going to be using 3 primary colors, well technically 4. We're going to be using Abaddon Black, Gunmetal Gray, and Silver, but most importantly Retributer Armor. And we're going to have to do a few coats of it because again we're going on top of a black base coat, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to use that reference image again. We're going to be using Abaddon Black in the places that are black. We're just going to touch them up and make sure that they're all a consistent color. And then we're going to go back in and use it on the handle as well. We're going to be using our silver tone here, and we're going to be painting out the skull and making sure it's nice and bright and vibrant, as well as on our little measuring stick here. We're going to go on the inside of the optical lens as well and do something special, but we'll talk about that when we get there. With the faces of the circles, we're also going to be doing a Retributer Armor finish on those as well. And for the Gunmetal Gray, we're just going to be doing the top of the sword and the pommel. For the bottom of the sword, we're going to go back in and use our silver again. Now I'm not going to show too much of this on camera because it's easy enough to explain, and you can just use the end result as our reference image. Once that's all done, we're going to go ahead and hit that up with Retributer Armor all the way around the outside and do all the trim work, as well as not just on the surface, but on those inside edges as well. Once you go ahead and get all those colors done, the only additional detail we're going to do is we're going to do a little strip of Fenrisian gray around the outside edge. Now I'm sticking to mostly just those raised edges and the outside edges. I'm not going to do the inside edges. I feel that's a little over the top. The orange is such a vibrant color that I don't think you need that Fenrisian gray on both sides of the orange. Now regardless of what color you ended up painting yours, in my case I painted mine lead belcher. We're going to go ahead and take these little shields and we're going to go ahead and put a liberal coat of Nuln Oil across it. Now you may want to do 2 coats of this. In my case I'm using Flow Improver, which is why you'll see it tends to cling to those recesses just a little bit better than Nuln Oil tends to. But we're going to go ahead and put a really nice healthy wash on the surface of both the front and the back side of these little shields. Once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead back in with our original color. Like I said, with my case here, it's lead belcher, and we're going to do a nice hefty dry brush. Now we're going to go mostly in a vertical direction, and that's to emulate the fact that maybe this has been left outside quite a lot, and so a lot of streaking has happened from it being left out in the rain. If you want to add some rust specks, you can go ahead and do that with a sponging technique or a stippling technique with your brush, and just use rust browns and like terracotta reds, and just to lightly apply that into the cracks and crevices. And it'll go a long way. A little will go a long way, but honestly I think that's a little over the top for these tiny little pieces of terrain. And with that, all our little detail pieces are done, and then we can start moving on to our larger pieces of terrain and actually get on to the bulk of today's project. So for the sake of today's video, we've gone ahead and done a Zenithal Prime. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit of how... It's Zenithal. Not minimal.
Zenithal, it's all the same thing.
It's good enough.
You're gonna paint it the way that I tell you to paint it.
And who even are you to tell me how to paint
like an orc? Well, simple. I'm Glob Bross, greatest orc painter that ever lived.
Well, I suppose if you insist, we could try it your way.
Now stop your whinging and do as I say, because I promise you, it's gonna turn out great. There's no reason for you to leave it like that. Look, if you're gonna be painting orc terrain, then you need to go ahead and actually paint like a freaking orc. Now look here, Umi, I don't really care about how you all like to paint your terrain, but if you're gonna be doing it my way, there's something you need to be keeping in mind. Us orcs, we got a color palette for a reason. Greens is the best, red's gonna go fastest, blue's gonna be your lucky color, make sure everybody misses you. Black means you're tough, purple is a sneaky. You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't think so. Yellow makes you the biggest, the fastest, the boomiest. It also makes you shining gubbins and your teeth. That's why our teeth are worth so much. White is death, cause that's the color of your bones. Ain't really that hard to grasp. You can pick any colors other than you want, but understand that if you paint with those colors, there's a reason for them, and that's why we're gonna pick the colors we do to paint what we do. But first is first, we're gonna make this as easy for us as possible. We're gonna go ahead and use one of them Umi rattle cans, shake them up real good. Those Umi rattle cans are way better than paint squig, that's for sure. Just don't tell the other orcs I said that. You're doing a great job. I can see you doing your best, and you're honoring your orc brothers by making sure that anything that looks like it's from a bomber or some kind of schnazwagon is either painted blue or bright yellow. And I like the addition of all the green in there, cause green is best. Just remember that if you're painting something that looks like it belonged to them Umis, then it needs to be painted green, cause those little sly Umis, trust me, they hide all the best stuff in those little green boxes. All the ammo, all the grenades, all of the guns, much daka. So make sure you paint anything that looks like it belonged to those Umis in green. Everything else, have fun with it. Go ahead and take some time and put in all your base colors now, and we'll talk about what we can do about all that trim. It's gonna be a bit much, but I promise we'll make it easy. Hey, wait a second, you slimy gits. Look at that there, That barrel should be painted red. Anything that looks like it may explode and make a big bada boom, you need to make sure it's painted red. We can use that to lay some dirty traps for later for them Humies.
Okay guys, it looks like he's gone for now, so I guess we're just going to continue to do what he says, because so far he really hasn't said anything wrong, which is strange to be working with an orc, but let's do some kind of time lapse while I go ahead and knock out all of these bass tones, and then let's see what he's got done for the trim. Who knows what he wants? He's an orc. This is still weird.
Oh, you gets, now you're finally starting to get it. You're gonna slap that paint straight on there right out of the pots. None of that Imperium 2 coats bullcrap.
Oh great, and here I thought you may have actually left.
Haha, that's a good one. But unfortunately, like any good grot, I ain't going anywhere. And unfortunately for you, I also ain't a grot.
Okay, so what do you want this time?
I wanted to take a second to talk about dry brushing. I can see that you're doing some dry brushing on them tires and they're looking real good, but there's another way you can use dry brushing to your advantage.
Okay, and how do you want me to do that?
Well, it's clear to see that you do understand the way that you're supposed to be using us orcish colors, but you want to use more colors than what you're using. Specifically, you're going to be wanting to add a lot of brick brown and a lot of brick red, and maybe a bit of, I don't know, rust and grime, oil and grease. You know, these things, they come in pairs, like moot and groot, and like mott and grot, and, you know, bullets and ammo, cause DACA.
Okay, I understand the brown part, but what do you want me to do about rust's red and like rust orange? Like, I know my way of doing it, but I do it at the end of everything. I've never done it while painting before.
Oi, alright, okay. I can understand you needing some advice, and I can understand you needing some direction. So here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna take the biggest brush you got, you're gonna load it up with some orange paint, and you're gonna stab away at the brown spots. Just make a random pattern, doesn't really matter. We're gonna do the same thing with red, and then we're gonna hit it again with Typhus Corrosion. You got Typhus Corrosion, right? Everyone should have Typhus Corrosion.
I do have Typhus Corrosion, but what do I do about the mess that I'm making? I'm gonna get paint all over doing this process.
Alright, I understand where you're coming from, but I did tell you at the beginning of all this I was gonna teach you the joys of orcish painting, and that's the reality of it. You don't have to worry about all your overlapping and any kind of mistakes that you make, because in the end, you're gonna trust the process and it's all gonna look good. All this stuff that's getting all over the place when you're doing the rust effects, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna look like it's part of the model and no one's ever gonna know. Now I can see you getting the hang of it, so I'm gonna leave you to it. I want you to try this on a few other spots on the model, mixing up your browns, your orange, and your red, and end up with something that you're really happy with. I promise everyone's got their own way of doing it, and it's super easy, and it's super simple. Whether you call it lazy or ingenuitive, you're gonna love the way it looks.
Okay, so he's gonna leave us to our devices, and we need to trust the process. So, tires are black, let's go ahead and slap some black on here. Guess we can do our edge highlights and our washes later. Let's just try and get some base coats down. Probably don't need to be too clean about that. Let's just go ahead and put some green on here since orcs are the best. You know what, yeah, actually now that I think about it, I don't really need to be that clean about my line work. It probably isn't going to matter with as much rust effects and everything else is what we're going to put on here. In fact, I'm not even going to bother painting these pillars with a metal color. We're just going to go straight in for brown. Why not? Just save some time. We can slap some shiny edge highlights on later. Yeah, it'll be good enough, right? Man, orc terrain really is easy. Maybe I should do some more of it sometime. Man, there really is a lot more rust on these than I thought there was. So much corrugated metal, so many wrought iron, I could probably even just slap some on the doors if I'm being honest, but we'll do that later when we're doing the weathering. There's no sense in wasting time with it now.
Oh, you hear me? Now you're starting to get the hang of it, you gets. With these light bulbs, why you paint them silver? Just put a color on them. Light bulbs ain't silver.
No way. You're telling me that the legendary orc painter doesn't know that if you put contrast paint on top of silver, it looks like a lit up light bulb? That's crazy. Yeah, well, so that's basically what I'm doing. I'm gonna put contrast paints on top of silver, and it makes it look more like a light bulb, and on the broken ones, we're just gonna put some of the normal color down and put a little edge highlight on so they look kind of translucent. But surely you knew that, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just testing you, see? Now you're beyond the simple Gretchen. Yeah. Totally knew that. Well, in any case, you hear me? I'm gonna give you a bit. I'm gonna come back at the end and see what you got. And in any case, I'm sure it'll be fine. Y'all just a simple Umi after all.
Well then, as a simple Umi, as you keep putting it, I guess we're just going to go ahead and slap some Wraithbone on these modeled wooden planks, and then we're going to hit it with some kind of a contrast brown. Could be any brown of anyone's choice, really. I'm choosing to use Gunthor Fur. And then we're going to hit it with a dry brush of Screaming Skull. And then from here on out, for as much as I would hate to admit it, it's pretty much the exact same way that Glob Bross has told us to paint things. We just kind of want to go through, pick out little details here and there. We're not worried about everything. We're just wanting the big picture. So we really only need to pick out some of the pipes, especially if they're the bigger ones, slap on some appropriate colors in places like the gas tanks, maybe go in and pick out a few more places in brown just to do some more added rust effects, and slap a few more colors on in places just to brighten everything up. And reality is that it's actually that simple. Jokes aside from what we've been doing today, hopefully you guys have kind of enjoyed the change of pace. I know I've had several people ask me to do some thematic videos, which is why there's not really going to be the overlay like what we do, kind of talking about colors and things like that. This is my first attempt at really ever doing something like this, and perhaps we'll do some more in the future once we kind of get more of a flow to this under our belt with how we want to approach it. And by we, I mean the community. If you guys liked today's video, please feel free to like it. It lets me know that you guys want to see more themed videos, or at least better put together themed videos. And yeah, I had a lot of fun making this, but it took a very long time. I think we're almost going on 4 weeks now just to make this one video. This was an insane amount of terrain to work on for a single project. I tend to burn out about 3 weeks into a large project, have to take a break, and then move on. And it was taking every ounce of strength I had not to phone it in here at the end, and in some places I probably did. I probably could have done a lot more detail, especially on the bigger pieces of terrain. And there are actually 3 more pieces of orc terrain that need to be done, and I will probably be doing those up for a more in-detailed depth look later down the road once I kind of get the way that I want these terrain pieces to look. But I really needed to wrap this project up so I could get some things put away, as well as get moved back onto some other projects as well. We still have to actually paint the kill teams from this box set, both the humans and the orcs. We need to get those painted up, and I want to do a proper video on those, which means that they may span several videos, just depending on how much I want to actually put into those videos, or how much you guys want to request for specific tutorials for different types of details. So again, I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this video, and I hope that we can do more videos like this in the future. As I've said last week, I've got a new job starting soon, so who knows what the schedule is going to be looking like next month or the month after, but I'm sure once I get back into the swing of things and find time to start doing the hobby more consistently, the video schedule will go back to normal, or at least as close to normal as we can get it. In the meantime, I hope your display case is always filled and your pile of shame never runs empty. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.